Hello, everyone. It's a wonderful Friday morning, and you are welcome once again to our Living in the Digital World program series. And I say good morning from Ghana, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are living in the world or where you are joining us. My name is Florence, and I am the director of Mobile Web Ghana and also work at the American corner at Bogba at Mobile Web Ghana. American Spaces provide access to current and reliable information about the United States through book collection, internet access, events, and activities. And this is the one of the events we are bringing to you today. Today, we are discussing a very important topic in this digital world that we are all living in. It's a very important topic, challenges posed by fake news, how it thrives, and combating it. And as we all know, majority of us rely on the internet as our source of information. Consumers of news are now at a higher risk of encountering or sharing fake news. You read, you watch, you listen. For you read, we are constantly reading, we are constantly listening to news, and we are constantly watching video information about specific news item. And in times, you don't usually know whether what you're reading is the truth or is fake. Today, we are very privileged to have our facilitator today, Roselina Ahiable, the program officer of Dubawa, correct? The program officer of Dubawa. And she is going to take us through the very important topic I mentioned, challenges posed by fake news, how it thrives, and how we can combat it. And Roselina is the program officer of Dubawa, Ghana. Roselina holds a Master's of Philosophy in Communication Studies from the University of Ghana, specializing in journalism, advertising, and public relations. She also holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in English and Theatre Arts from the University of Ghana, with an extensive background in project and event management. Lena oversees many successful advertising and marketing campaigns for notable brands in Ghana. In her previous role as senior researcher at Dubawa, Ghana, she has developed and honed her skills as an avid fact checker with great interest in open source investigations. In 2001, she was part of the team that trained participants for Dubawa Ghana's maiden campus fact-checking project that trained journalists, media, and communication students on fact-checking. Lena went on to train members of the West African Observers Network on the topic addressing electoral misinformation or disinformation in election observation in July 2001. She later served as consultant for the production of the toolkit dealing with disinformation and misinformation during elections for the use of the West African Observers Network. During the session, please kindly type all your comments and questions in the chat box below, and they will be addressed. Thank you for staying with us, and we hope you will enjoy this program. As we mentioned, let's be glued. Type any comments you would have, and we will take it up, and our facilitator will answer all your questions. Thank you. Welcome, Roselina, and we are expecting a great session today. Over to you.
Hello, Florence. Thanks for having me. This is my second time here, so it feels almost like home. So yes, I think we can get right into it. And please remember to send your questions into the chat box. Okay. I hope you can all see my screen.
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay. So like Florence said, we'll be going through challenges posed by fake news, how it thrives, and combating it. And I'm Roselina Ahiable. You can call me Lena, and I'm the program officer for Dubawa Ghana. So I start with this quote. In the arms race between those who want to falsify information and those who want to produce accurate information, the former will always have an advantage. And this is a general or widely known quote because it accurately describes how the information system works, where false news or fake news flies way ahead of accurate information. And you come to know that a lot of people refer to information that is wrong or inaccurate or missing context as fake news. But as fact-checking organizations, we've come to see that it does not aptly capture the essence of what it actually is. So we prefer to call it information disorder. And why we do not agree with the term fake news is because news in and of itself is information that is considered verifiable, that is considered to be in the interest of the public, right? So when you have false content in the form of memes, videos, images coming out, you cannot rightfully, consider it as news, right? So in that case, it cannot pass as news in and of itself. And that is why we call it the information disorder. And it is defined as the various ways in which the information environment is polluted. And on the general level, we can classify information disorder based on intention, right? So what is the intention of the information that has been put out there? And it's then further classified into three, which is misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation. Misinformation is when false content or information is spread with no intention to harm. So during the COVID period, we had a lot of such instances where people would come across remedies for COVID, right? And share with their loved ones in the hopes of helping them in one way or the other. But then in verifying these things, you may find that may not be so. It may not work as is claimed, or it may cause some sort of harm, even though it was sent in a friendly or a caring manner. And then we have disinformation as well, where false content is spread with the intention to harm. So it can be fabricated content that is created based off of a complete lie and shared with the intention to cause some sort of harm to the recipient. And then we have malinformation as well, where genuine content is shared with the intention to harm. And a very obvious example would be sex tapes, for instance. There are things that are real, but then when it is shared, it's with most likely the intention to tarnish someone's image. Someone's image. Or for instance, if there's an issue ongoing about a politically affiliated person, and then you as an individual with access to the person shares the person's location or home address, it is factual information, but once you put it out there, the person is at risk of being harmed. And this is a diagram from First Draft, which shows how these different informations interplay with each other. They further rightfully break it into 7 common forms, right? Where there's satirical content, where it can be information that is put out there with the intention to fool. And one example is, I think, The Onion. I don't know if any of you have come across it, but they put out content that may seem quite true, but it's put out there for satirical purposes or as a parody, right? And some of these things you can see just by reading the about me of the sites, but then a lot of people may not end up doing that and may end up being misinformed or disinformed. We have misleading content as well, where misleading information is used to frame an issue or an individual. That's quite clear. We have imposter content where genuine sources are impersonated, where an actual source is being claimed to have said something that they may not have said. We have fabricated content, which is false content that is 100% false and designed to deceive or to harm the recipient of that information. We have false connections, and this is quite common, especially in Ghana as well, where you find bloggers put out certain types of headlines that are so attractive that pull you in to click and read. But then once you read, you find that the content of the publication has no connection whatsoever with the headlines, and it may be used in the case of photos as well. And then we have false context, where genuine content is shared with false contextual information, where, for instance, something that may have happened in Egypt or Saudi Arabia being said to have happened in Ghana with a different narrative. And that is also another way that information disorder comes about. And then we have manipulated content, where genuine information or imagery is manipulated. It can be tweaked in a way to bring out some sort of false information to deceive the recipients. And there are different reasons why we find people creating or sharing that kind of false or misleading content. An example is political reasons. And we've come across such instances in our line of work where we've had to fact check politically affiliated people who have said things against the opposition parties, for instance, NPP and NDC. They may create things that may cast them in bad light, of course, with the hopes of soliciting voter interest and potentially likely win an election or something of the sort. Then we have financial and economic reasons, which is, like I said, the clickbaiting, sensational headlines, where, the more traffic they draw onto their websites, the more money they get. So once they put out something that draws your attention enough to click and follow through, they get what they need, and then they make their money off of that. And then there are social and psychological factors. Bad people exist either for personal reasons or whatever. And it can be so trivial that somebody would, for instance, let me use the example, hack into your account for the fun of it. And it's the same thing that is done with misinformation. They want to put out information and see, can I get away with this? Would somebody be able to trace this back to me? And then in other cases, it may be based on social issues. So perhaps it may be religious, it may be ethnic, it may be anything at all social that motivates them to put out that sort of content. And these ones are a bit more on the tougher side to handle because they are personal reasons. And it's a bit difficult to control person's personal reasons for putting out bad stuff, right? So with all this, why is information disorder still thriving? It's been years of working on it, years of doing our best as fact-checking organizations, of educating media organizations, educating the public. But why is this still a persistent problem? I've broken it down into different sectors. The first one is emotions, right? False information or misinformation thrives on the recipient's information or the recipient's emotions, right? Be it fear, be it uncertainty, be it excitement, for instance. So if I'm afraid and come across a content that suggests that an explosion has happened in Tema, I live in Tema, and I'm somewhere in Accra, and I know that my family is in Tema, out of fear, I'd say, look, I just came across this, you guys should leave Sakmono right away. When in fact, that may not be the case, right? And in some cases as well, there's issues of uncertainty. You're not sure about what you're receiving. So you share in the hopes of getting some sort of clarity. That person may not be the source to go to. That person may also share, and then it just keeps being shared and end. And then there's also a need for relevance, right? People want to remain relevant. So in such instances, a clear example would be PR, right? People put out some sort of PR related content to drive excitement about something that is coming up, something they're intending to do, or just their very existence. We have people putting out articles about projects they're doing, which may not actually be something that is ongoing. They just want to feel like they're still relevant. The news is still existing about them. People are still curious about them. So they may put out false information. Financial gains, which is quite an easy one. Like we said, when we came to clickbait, there's money in there for them. They put out headlines that draw your attention. Thousands of people go onto that page, becomes viral, even though the content may not be the case. In some cases, People just click to see what is going on, what is the hype about, why is this so viral? And that is just more money going into their pockets. And then there's self-selection or media selection into echo chambers. There are two different things, this self-selection into echo chambers. For the self, that is when we, based on our choices on, let's say, for instance, social media, get certain content sent to us, right? So if I am a gym freak, which I'm trying to be by the grace of God, do tend to go for, let's say, dieting related information, tend to go for workouts information. The algorithms work such that they keep giving me that kind of content. And it's the same politically. If I tend to go for certain, let's say, for instance, NDC or NPP related content, I'll find that there'll be lots of political content directed my way by the algorithms. And depending on who I click or read more from, I may end up getting more from one sector than the other. And that is one way of us self-selecting into echo chambers. And then in the same way, the media can self-select us into echo chambers. It may not be conscious on our part that we are seeking a certain type of information, but the media or the social medium that we are using can in itself take note of the things that we are unconsciously going for. And in that sense, create some sort of echo chamber for us where we may end up losing out on contrary information that may be useful to us as well. And then there's biases, right? Human as we are, there are things that can cause us to be biased and things that will cause us to hold on to inaccuracies. One is confirmation bias. For instance, that is if I am to seek out information that only goes in line with what I believe in. In that case, how then do I know if there's an opposing view, which may be right, as opposed to what I am looking for, if you get what I mean? So confirmation bias is a serious thing. It's on a personal level, but it's a very, very important reason why false information or misinformation may go out. And then we have the backfire effect, where even in light of evidence given you about something being wrong or something being false, I still hold on to that personal belief that, no, this is what I believe in. So it backfires. Even though it's factual information coming to me, I am not interested in it, right? Because I have personal beliefs that I'm holding on to. And it's a very serious thing to work on. It takes the person being willing to come out of that mindset to be able to see contrary to what they believe in. And all these things have the potential to cause so much harm, right? Destabilize political systems, for example. During Ghana's last elections, there were a lot of false information going out that people were being kept from registering or being kept from voting in the Volta region, for example. And we looked at this and we found that it was not necessarily the case. Some of the videos that were put out were from old events that happened, some not even in the Volta region, being portrayed as something that was happening in the Volta region. Then there's a tendency to lose trust as well. If you keep getting false information from, let's say, a member of parliament, definitely you'll be inclined to, reject things that they may put across, because now you do not have much to hold them to. And then there are cases of inflamed and suppressed social conflicts. Certain social conflicts need to be inflamed, need to be given voice. And on the other hand, some need to be suppressed, need to be held down. But then with the use of information disorder, like misinformation or disinformation, it may be contrary. You may give light to what needs to be suppressed and then suppress what needs to gain the viewership or audience that it needs. And also one that is very dear to me is health-related implications. And this is especially because the potential for harm, like severe harm or death in certain cases, is high, where, for instance, we had some claims suggesting that drinking coffee mixed with lemon and hot water was the solution to weight loss. I mean, I would have gained greatly from that if that was the case. But when we put it to the test, we spoke to relevant sources, doctors, nutritionists, dietitians, and it came to realize that it's not necessarily the case. Most of these people are having other complementary things done. For instance, working out, changing their diets, etc. So if you are somebody who, for instance, has acid resistance, goes in for this kind of thing, it can give you health-related complications like ulcers and whatsoever. And then there are financial risks as well. When we've come across a couple of claims where people are saying that they are doing fast get money quick schemes, right? You send in 100 CDs and you get 1,000 CDs or 2,000 CDs in 5 minutes. Most of these things are scams, and we put even some of these to test because they end up using celebrities and whatnot on their advertisements, which makes people believe that there is some sort of association between those people and the game or the scam that is being run, and people end up losing money in such situations. And then there's a tendency for broken relationships. And this tells us that information disorder can even break relationships in our immediate circle, where a friend suggests, let's say a friend, for instance, suggests a scam, a financial related scam to me, and I put my money in there. The person my friend may not have known, but because I lose money that may have been the last I had, it can cause a break in relationship. So this tells us that it's in as much as we see information disorder on the big level, it also comes within our small circles as well and can cause a lot of harms. So how do we go about trying at least to fix the disinformation and misinformation problem? We'd say education, fact-checking, regulation, and engagements. There may be other ways to go about it, but these are what I'll be looking at today. So education. Media information literacy is key because it teaches people how to think critically about the media they consume, right? Information they consume online, on traditional media, or even in person, right? They begin to know how to question. They begin to look critically at things and ask relevant questions. And that is the key to be able to promote critical thinking and wise clicking online, right? And this is something that needs to go on all levels. It needs to go to the grassroots. It needs to go to civil society organizations, media houses, and individuals if we are to get a headway in this fight. And also fact-checking, which is what Dubawa Ghana, for instance, does. We interrogate claims that have been made, claims that are viral, claims that have been made by prominent people, claims that have consequences or implications for the consumer, like health-related claims, and images and videos as well. And there are a lot of us available to you. All you need to do is to reach out. If you have come across the content that you have some sort of doubts about, are unsure about, all you need to do is to reach out to us. We'll put it to the test. We'll go to the right sources. We'll do the right investigations and give you the information that you need. And then regulation. Self-regulation is key to what we do, especially because if we look at it in line with media information literacy education, once a person is educated and once the person knows what to do with the information they come in contact with, they're able to extend that knowledge to their online relationships, their online interactions, their online consumption. And they're able to then better regulate themselves in what they interact with and what they share. And it's important that social media applications, for instance, as well, also do some sort of regulation. And we found that Facebook, for instance, does that. And it's with their third-party, I think, partnership with fact-checking organizations over the world. And Dubawa is one of those organizations. So the Facebook algorithm will flag things that they see as potential claims. Organizations like us will have a look at it, put it to the test. We'll do our fact-check, verification, debunking, and then flag these content online. So you may come across certain posts, certain Facebook posts or IG posts that you see that the caption that this has been verified by company A, organization A, and found to be true or false or misleading or to be missing some sort of context. That is a way that Facebook, for instance, is doing the regulation. And so other social media applications doing this would also be of great help. And then we have interventions by platforms. And these platforms, I mean, online news websites, bloggers, and private and personal blogs as well. People need to know that it's important to analyze and to criticize the type of information you put there, especially to avoid putting people at risk, And once they're able to do that, they'll be able to put out more credible information as opposed to information that may be harmful to the consumer. And then holding claimants accountable. In political view, for instance, this is very key, because if you find that ministers or parliamentarians are putting across content which is not factual, like we do all the time, because we have a lot of claims right now that have been worked on and found that so many things that have been claimed to be so, like figures or number of buildings that have been built by a certain government or the other, may be true, may be false, may be inflated. It may be 10, but they may put it across as being 20. We need to be able to hold them accountable. These fact checks need to do more than to just be read. It needs to have people come out and retract what they've said, to put out correct statements, so that it's not just the bad information that is out there. Correct and verified information should also be put on that same pedestal as the false information that is put out there. And then we have to have strategic engagements. And I put that with media organizations, bloggers, and content creators. We at Dubawa, for instance, trained many organizations, radio, TV. We've trained bloggers, especially leading to the last 2020 general elections. We trained media organizations, bloggers, and content creators on how to verify information, why it is important that they verify information they put out there, and such. So we need to do more of that to make sure that all media organizations are trained, for instance, local language speaking stations and the like. So in sort of wrapping up, it's important that fact-checking, education, self-regulation, and all these things are done consistently. It's not enough to fact-check for a month after you've been trained. It needs to be something that's consistently done. That is what will condition the audience, condition your organization as well to seek truth over clicks, over sensationalism, and then practicing as well. So for instance, last month when we had the digital verification tools training, I said that it's important that these things be practiced. It's not enough to just sit in a session with it. You need to try your hands out on it. Try and use a reverse image search. Try and identify things that are just weird in images. Try to look more critically at things. And with that, you notice that as and when you come in contact with certain things, you are able to readily identify things that you can put to test and get out some critical information from there. And then implementation is valid. We need to put in regulations, like I said, holding people accountable. It needs to be done long term so that these people who are constantly distorting information know that, look, we are being watched. This is important. This is something that can be deadly. This is something that can be harmful. And with that long-term repetition, you see that all these things will begin to quell down or begin to be better handled. And then it's important that we also know we are all players. People would usually look to the other person, right, as the one who is sharing false information, which may not necessarily be the case, because as you've seen, sometimes we do it unconsciously. And so it's important that we start with the self. It's key that you question yourself before you share. Don't just take information that has been sent to your phone, to your WhatsApp, to you on Twitter and forward it. Know that even those have implications as well. And perhaps there'll be a session on how the law works in line with disinformation, misinformation, what is possible to come at you as a result of sharing mis and disinformation. So it's important that we start with ourselves and then to positively influence those that are around us. And I'll end with this quote that says that information is only as reliable as people who are receiving it. If readers do not change or improve their ability to seek out and identify reliable sources, the information environment will not improve. So it has said it all. We need to do a lot ourselves, and in that way, the environment within it, the information ecosystem will also improve accordingly. And that will be all for today. Thank you very much. I'll take any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Lena, for that amazing presentation. And just want to echo your last words that we are all players, both those creating the news and we, those consuming it, are liable. And we should all be careful. And we should try and take a critical look at the news before we share or before we do anything with the news item. And Lena, I have some questions for you. And I mean, you've said it nicely. Look, analyze critically, do these wonderful words. And is the reality different, especially during pandemic, for instance? I remember myself, and disasters. I remember when you mentioned about the gas explosion. I mean, I live very close to Atomic Junction, and I was in my house when I heard, boom, the gas has exploded. And everybody was saying, fire, 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 fire. I just got out of my room and I saw that, well, yes, it's true, there is fire. Whether it's close to me or not, I can see that there is fire. So everybody is running. I just followed those who were running. I didn't lock my door. I didn't do anything. I was just running. How, I mean, if you've said it nicely, when do you stop and ask yourself, is this fake news? Is this real? And also during the pandemic, someone forwarded a message to me. Today is the day that you can get infected. If you go out or you step out of your house, it is exactly what happened in another country. And you could, I was terrified. I decided not to, share the news, but I went out anyway. But I was surprised that this is somebody who is highly educated and lives in a very reputable organization, but has shared this news to me. And I thought that, look, you should not. So I didn't forward the news to anything, just by the fact that me, myself, I was affected by the news. So I decided, look, I will not be the one who is spreading such news items. So 2 questions. In times of disaster, oh, it's flood, water is coming, or something is happening. What do you actually do in times of that, especially during the gas explosion? People even lost their lives not because of the gas explosion, but because they were rushing out, they were crossing roads, they were doing other things. And so I mean, it's a two-edged sword. How do you act and still become? How do you diagnose such information? And also during pandemic situations, what do you actually do?
Okay, so for the first part, I would say that the scenario you gave is quite peculiar, right? You live within the environment in which that happened, right? Where the incident happened. So you have a first-hand kind of experience of what has happened, right? That is contrary to somebody who may have been, let's say, in East Legon, right? Who is not so close to the explosion. So you have first-hand interaction with what is going on, so you can know for yourself.
I was living so many kilometers away. I live at Red. I was not so close, but at least I saw that there was something in the air.
Yes, so you saw for yourself that there's something like that in the air.
Yes,
and
yes.
that's in itself is enough verification for you, right? But for somebody who may have been further away and not even be close enough to see an explosion or to see smoke in the air, somebody like that may first and foremost call somebody that may be within that area, right? Or look to credible news platforms. There are credible news platforms that have people at different locations, right? So when something happens like that, you may see breaking news on maybe Joy Online, City Online, that may verify that in case something like this has happened. Then again, self-regulation comes in. So you said yourself that people lost their lives in getting away from something that they are not so close to. If they had just paused for a minute to just think critically, okay, the smoke seems quite a distance away. Let me call somebody to see what is going on. Let me check here. They would not probably have been in such a rush to cause maybe the kind of incident that happened that people lost their lives. You get it? That is for somebody who is in a distance. But for somebody who has witnessed it firsthand, you're automatically moved, right? You're automatically put in survival mode, right? So you can't help it. So, and then also for the COVID instance, for instance, you remember I told you that fear or emotions, right, drive people to share mis and disinformation. It's out of concern for you that most likely that friend forwarded that oh, he has heard. He hasn't also put on his critical helmet, right, to see if is this even possible? Is there a particular day that the COVID virus is so much more in the air or so many people have it that going out would expose them to it? You get it? So emotions, fear, care for loved ones like yourself can also drive them to make such mistakes. So always go to reliable sources. Call Ghana Health Services available to you. Is there something peculiar about today that makes the chances of contracting this virus that much higher? Yeah.
Great responses. I have a question from a viewer. How does one pass on questionable information to your organization for verification? Is it at a fee, at a cost?
No, it is not at a fee. It is not at a cost. We are here at your service. You can get to us on our social media platforms. We are on Facebook. We are on Instagram. We are on Twitter. Our website is active, GhanaDubawa.com or dubawa.ghana.com. Our number is also always active. It's 054-281-8189. 054-281-8189. We are always ready and available to take your claims on and work on it and get feedback back to you. It's at no cost whatsoever.
Great. And Lina, when you look at the media landscape in Ghana, you would, how do you call it, confirm the fact that it's the media house that releases the news first. It gives an upper hand to the media houses that releases the news first. Now, fact-checking verification takes time. And in a competitive world where people need to pay, organizations need to run, they want to be the first to carry out the news. And spending little or no time to actually now, I'm going to call now, I'm going to check now, there is delay. What would you say should account for such circumstances?
Okay.
Like, there is a competitive world. Now you said you check facts, we should do this before we release the news items. Is it possible for the media houses to do that and still have an upper hand?
Okay, so that's where the difference comes in, right? So as fact checkers, even though we are producing some sort of news, it doesn't work exactly as journalism does. They are always looking to break the news first and all that. But in all the trainings that we've done for media organizations, we've advocated for the creation of fact-checking desks, right? So these fact-checking desks have the sole responsibility of fact-checking news that goes on out there. We cannot hold them to their usual breaking news ethics, but what we can do is to help them to know how to go about doing the fact-checking, help them set up these desks. We also make ourselves available to them as well to assist in the fact-checking in instances where they may not have enough people on hand to do it because maybe election season or something of the sort. We are always available to do that with them. But there really isn't a clear-cut way to help them maintain that leverage of I broke the news first when we are valuing breaking the correct news first. And if we are able to get across to all the media houses, get them on this same thinking path, then that in itself is a sort of solution, right? Because you are all thinking in the same way. You are all valuing credible information over releasing any type of information first, right? So then there wouldn't be that kind of conflict of, okay, I don't want to take so much time to do this, because then in such a utopia example, everybody would be doing the same thing of verifying, cross-checking before releasing the information. And it's in itself protects the reputation of your organization as well. We don't want to put out something out there that is not factual and then come out and have to retract. The more times you keep doing that, the more people will leave not trusting your organization for putting out that kind of content. So it's a dicey one, if you're an organization that values, getting the information out first, that in itself is an issue on its own, because you do not understand the value or the dangers that come with releasing false information. So in the beautiful utopia of what we do, all organizations should know the value of putting out factual information. And that in itself would put this balance aside, because they would all be operating in the same way. And that is what we are hoping for.
Okay, great. We should value having a desk in the various media houses in order to check information. I have great questions from our viewers online, and I have a question from someone. What can be done in instances where individuals or organizations are reluctant to retract false claims? Are there legal implications? And I think that Lena mentioned we would have a session on how the law works when it comes to disinformation. And so, but Lena, you can throw more light on this question. What can be done in these instances where individuals or organizations are reluctant to retract false information?
This is not really my field, because we go to experts who do this law-related training. So Tanko Zakaria, for instance, it's a very good partner that we work with to take people through the law. But then again, it is readily available, right? There are fines that are out there if you are to have been found to put out some sort of misinformation that is causing some sort of danger to the society. There are fines that are put in place. I think even during the coronavirus, there was such an incident. It was quite popular. A young man said that the coronavirus was not real. It was a formulated thing. And he was on the news. I saw him on TV3. He was put in prison, I think, for a period of time and fined. And he even came out when I said, oh no, he meant it as a joke. And it wasn't his intention to mislead people. So there are actual laws in place that can hold people accountable, just that we are not using it as much. So perhaps what we can say is that maybe use the law as it's supposed to be used, and not be afraid. Sometimes we are afraid of holding these people to it. So a minister put out false information. Hey, if I'm the one to take this up and say that this person needs to be held accountable, I stand at risk of so and so, right? So we just need to do more of that. And hopefully if this session on the law and misinformation comes in, it will be of great help to people to know exactly how far they can take people on in such cases.
Okay, there is another great question from one of our viewers online, and he or she is asking, what measures, action does Dubawa Ghana put in place to help minimize disinformation in Ghana? And I'm presupposing that the person is assuming that on our news item, there are a lot of news flying around. Are you putting any measures in place to minimize disinformation in Ghana?
So what Dubawa does, mainly, like I've said, is to educate the public, educate media organizations, educate civil society organizations, educate the public on what to do when they come in contact with information. Aside doing our fact-checking work where we actively source for claims on the traditional media, on social media, and then fact-check and put out information there. We cannot force people to go to our website or force people to engage with our social media to see what we've worked on, right? But it's what we do is to post it as much as possible, have people know that, okay, we have this information on this trending or this viral information. Have a read, see for yourself. And our process is such that you do not necessarily need to read the entire text to know what our conclusions were or what our findings were, because we have a very simple formats where we have the claim and we have the verdict. Just looking at the claim and the verdict on our website or on our social media is enough to let you know that, okay, this is what was found. But then engagement is low. Like I said in the beginning, false information flies faster than factual information. We have to at times keep promoting our content online just to have enough people interact with it. Sorry about the background noise. Just to have enough people interact with it. People are not actively seeking factual information, and that in itself is an issue that we need to deal with, which is why self-regulation and education is key. People need to engage with factual information, even much more so than false information. You know, if people would receive false information and block it there by not sharing, and then refer it to an organization like Duba can then look into it. You get that actual or verified information, and then you in turn share with people. That in itself breaks the chain, right? But specifically, we do not have any extra ability other than doing what we do. You get it? So what we can do is to put the truth out there, have you look for the truth, teach you how to identify the truth for yourself. And then in that way, do the best we can to fight this information disorder.
Okay, great. So Dubawa empowers you, gives information about how you can identify misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation, and know what you can do about it. That is the best they can do for you. And there's another question, and a question that I really like. How can children or teenagers who have access to mobile devices stay safe from disinformation?
Again, it comes back to education, right? They can only know to do what they've been taught. If, for instance, there's been a lot of talk about introducing media information literacy in the educational sector. Don't know how far that has gone, but Dubawa, for instance, we have something we call the Week for Truth, which comes off in October. What we do in that week, it's a week-long celebration, is to do a lot of education online, and then we go to schools and talk to people, train people on what fact-checking is. Why is it important to know how to engage with information you come across on social media? Because believe it or not, once they have access to these devices, they are constantly at risk of being exposed to false information and even harmful information. So it comes down to us being able to educate, right? So in cases where parents have been exposed to this kind of education, it is key that it trickle down to the younger ones as well. And we think it is key. So we go to senior high schools, we go to junior high schools, because even they have access to this kind of misinformation, disinformation, and all that. So teaching them what to do, teaching them that there's something being done, letting them know that there are people who are ready to help you identify the right kind of information, people who are ready to do the work for you, because in some cases, it's not so easy to tell just by questioning what you come across that this may be right or wrong. You may need some tools to help you. Know that we are available. Know what it is we are teaching. We are not keeping our skills to ourselves. We want to teach everybody how to do what we do. So that is what we actively do, trying to educate the public, educate students, parents, media organizations. Everybody needs media information literacy training and fact-checking training.
Great. Dubawa is not keeping their skills to themselves. They want to give it out. So if you want to reach out to them, go to their website, Dubawa, and then you can find out more information about how you can reach them. And Lina, I want to ask, especially, what do you think can be done to reduce the influence of peer review of information? So, for instance, if I receive information from my sister, I would believe that information more, or I would trust that information that, once it's from, or even from a minister, like you mentioned, like, this is a good information than if I receive it from someone just on the street, right? So to what extent can we reduce that in order to minimize misinformation?
Okay, so for me, until I got into this field, for instance, I wasn't more of the questioning type, right? I would hardly bother about what I receive. I'll take what I receive as is. But with the education I have now, with the exposure I have now, with the experience I have now, I take almost every piece of information with a pinch of salt, right? I'm automatically questioning what I come into contact with online. And it's not, we need to also know the right sources to go to for the right kinds of information. You do not expect to go to a doctor when they're talking about mechanical related issues, right? So it's important that we know who to source for information from. If the minister, for instance, like you were saying, comes out with a figure that says that within his term of office, he's inaugurated 200 hospital buildings, that is something that can be put to test, right? Because he's put a number to it. We can find out if indeed there are those 200 health points that can even have been inaugurated. You understand? And you wouldn't go to the claimant. Well, you may go to him to find out what he means. Does it mean that all these 200 have been inaugurated and are working? Does it mean that some are and some are not? He needs to clarify what he means by what he said. And then you need to go beyond that person. It's not enough that he said it, right? And that he is the voice on it. You need to go beyond to other credible sources. You can go on the ground yourself. Go to him, find out, okay, where are these 200 clinics? And go and find out for yourself if they really do exist, which of course is an issue because it may be capital intensive, right? So then you come to organizations that may be able to put that money to use in finding that out. Or question beyond. The health minister says that there's been a new virus, but it's under control. He may not be an active practicing doctor to know that for himself. So you may go to hospitals, speak to doctors. How is the issue? How is it like in your hospital? Is it the same at Confanoche? Is it the same at Kolebu? Is there really this intense an outbreak? And find out. Go to multiple sources, multiple primary sources, people who would have the information you need. And for your sister's bit, for instance, you'd trust your sister because he's related to you, right? But you need to be able to question where she is also getting the information from. She may have gotten it from a friend that she believes she could have trusted, which may not actually have been factual information, right? So just question. If you question and you find out it is true, we are all happy. If you find out it's not true, try to put it out there as well. Be careful about what you consume, be critical, ask questions as much as possible, and that should help.
Be critical, ask questions, verify the information. And just a couple of questions to go. And as we mentioned, if you have questions, please type it in the chat box and we'll read out your question. Lena, just one or two more questions and then we are off. Our time is running. And you've mentioned that we should verify, we should put in some resources to verify. Is it really worth verifying information? For instance, if the minister says he's built 200 houses or 200 facilities, is it worth for me to go around verifying those information? Or even if I've heard something that I feel is not true, what is in it for me to verify that information? Because I'm going to use my time, my resources, I'm going to spend so much. And as you know, we really don't have such time, So I really want you to tell us the real importance of verifying that information. Is it only at the point where we want to distribute that information, or just for us to be updated and abreast with what the person has said?
Okay, so like I mentioned, there are certain political implications, there are certain health-related implications. So in the example I gave about the minister, for instance, if election is upcoming and he makes such a claim, it indicates that their government is doing more, right? It's doing what they have perhaps said they will do, which then influences your voting outcome, right? You would then be more inclined to say, okay, they've actually done what they said they wanted to do. That's a fact. But if you find out that it's contrary, they made this promise that they're going to build these 200. He says they have built the 200, but in actual fact, only 2 have been built. There are 3 in the process of being built. That would also affect how you vote, wouldn't it? Because
yes.
they have then not been able to fulfill a certain promise and are then further putting a lie to it that they have actually done it, trying to make it seem as though they have. You get that in itself is a very important reason why. And again, like I mentioned, the health related implications. If you are told to drink a gallon of sobolo a day, and because it will cleanse or detox your body. I'm very keen about this because I'm trying to lose some weight, so don't mind me. But so for instance, you go ahead with this and it causes acid reflux, or maybe you have some sort of allergy to this product. It can be very detrimental. So it's not so much as just putting the information there. And that is why we don't put out just any kind of information, or we do not just fact check any kind of information. There are certain criteria for our selection processes. Is it viral? Is it having the potential to cause harm, to cause some destabilization of the democratic process? Is it being said by somebody who is in a prominent position, somebody that has influence? We look for certain things that that supports our decision to fact check or otherwise, whatever claim it is that is put out there. So it is very important. I get asked this question a lot: why do you do what you do? Because it is necessary. It is very important. As I have told you, there are many consequences. Yeah.
There are many consequences for not fact-checking information. Your health could be at stake, and many other factors that could contribute to not checking the information right. And this brings us to the end of another wonderful session. And I want to say a great thank you to Rosalina Hiamble for always coming on board to educate us about fake news. And now it's not only fake news, it's misinformation, it is disinformation, and it is malinformation. And we are very happy that we've learned all this time, and now we can know exactly what we are consuming. And we are trusting that you will be with us another time where we come to have another session on fake news, misinformation, and other terminologies that we will learn. This brings us to the end, but before we leave the session today, I want you to know about an amazing online resource that you may find helpful, and this is the eLibrary USA. The eLibrary USA is a state-of-the-art digital library with 9 premium electronic databases that include digital newspapers, magazines, channels, videos, and dissertation. Usually, this resource is only available to use in person at American spaces, but with the global pandemic, we are opening up access to this amazing resource. If you're interested, please sign up using the link that can be found in the comment section below. If you see it, please click on it and sign up. This program was brought to you by the U.S. Embassy, American Corner, Agbogba, and in partnership with Mobile Web Ghana. And that concludes our program for today. Please follow us on YouTube, U.S. Embassy Ghana, for more amazing virtual programs. And thank you for joining us. Please stay safe, observe all the protocols, wash your hand under running water for 20 seconds, practice social distancing, and wear nose masks in public. Till we meet again next time, I say thank you to our facilitator, Rosalina Hiamble, and our partner, the U.S. Embassy, for hosting this event. And my name is Florence Topher. See you again next time, and have a pleasant day. Bye.